Welcome back to the Banderpod, the playful and plucky podcast of Bandersnatch Books. We're a small press publisher of treasures found off the beaten path for lovers of all that is good, true, and beautiful. I'm Rachel S. Donahue, and today I'm talking with graphic designer and children's book enthusiast Graeme Pitman about what exactly it is that we love about books. Graeme is the creative director of the Circe Institute, the co-host of the Withywindle podcast, a root beer connoisseur, and a father of 3 littleish ones. He has designed the covers of 2 Bandersnatch books, Mark Forrester's Above Not Up, and our upcoming poetry collection by Kelly Belmonte, The Mother of All Words. Graeme Pitman, welcome to the Banderpod.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting to have you on this side of a podcast.
Yeah, this is awesome.
All right, so let's get into book talk right off the bat. What is the first book you remember loving?
That's a great question. I remember having books all around growing up. Mm-hmm. And I remember really loving, obviously, like a lot of the picture books as I was a kid, like the Richard Scarry's. Mm-hmm. Where the Wild Things Are has a very important place in my life. And it must just be because of looking over those pictures all the time as a kid. Probably like 5-6 years old.
It's a great picture book.
Dr. Seuss, that's definitely up there. But as far as like a chapter book, it would be Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So I remember I just vivid memories, even as at like, 6, 7, 8 of reading and especially of that one. And then my parents, we had like the VCR and we would tape the British production of Narnia. And I would just watch those over and over and over. So yeah,
that's great.
I think as far as chapter books go, that's the one that I remember earliest.
Oh, that's great.
Just falling in love with.
Yeah. So what kind of books did you read on a regular basis as a kid? Like what was your go-to?
So there was a series of books. This would probably be when I was 8 or 9. Mm-hmm. They were by Louis Sachar, and they were called The Sideways Stories of Wayside School.
Yes.
Yeah. So I actually wasn't a huge reader. Like I say, I was like surrounded by books. My parents had tons of books, but I wasn't like a huge reader. But I would find books like that and kind of revisit them over and over and over.
Yeah.
And so like I feel like I have that first book memorized almost still. And he's better known for other books. Like he's the one who wrote Holes.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. I'd never heard of that book until much later. But those books I always loved. And then we had a lot of comics like around too. And different families, different speeds as far as that stuff goes. But like I love comics and we have them in our house all the time. But like Asterix and Obelisk. I feel like I learned a ton about history through those.
Yeah.
Calvin and Hobbes definitely like expanded my humor and vocabulary.
Yes.
And there's like a lot of philosophy in those as well. Like he's very, very smart writer.
Yeah.
And then like Tintin as well, which is Belgian. And that was more of an adventure. So those, and then those great illustrated classics. Those are the ones I remember as like under the covers, like with the flashlight, reading Treasure Island and, Dr. Jekyll.
Oh, that's fun.
And then I actually got really into Star Wars books. And I think this was like when I was like 11. And I actually think that's what turned me into a reader.
Oh, interesting.
Because they were thick. They were like a commitment.
Yeah.
And there was a ton of them. And a lot of them were trilogies. So this is, expanding on the Star Wars movies. You're like getting more into the lore and more into, all these different things. I have never revisited those books since I was like 11 or 12. I don't know if they're any good, but they helped me.
Oh, that's so
And then
cool.
probably a year or so later than that, Lord of the Rings just like took over.
Yeah.
And from there, I was just gone. I was lost. Books had me. So, yeah.
Oh, that's fun. So how did you get into graphic design? Like at what age did that kind of the visual art start to pique your interest?
Yeah.
Was it as a kid? How did you get on that trajectory?
Well, I think like we're surrounded by design, all of us, all the time. And so you start off as a consumer of it, right? So it's just not that you're paying attention to, let's say, like a billboard or advertising in different ways or whatever. But I was always interested in like object design. I would gravitate toward a certain mug, to drink out of, or a kettle or a teapot, or, things like that. And then much like books, we always had art supplies. So my mom is a painter. She's a watercolor artist. And now currently she's an art teacher. So we always had art supplies, and she was always coming up with ideas for us, to make things. And I have two older brothers, and I don't think they were that interested in it, but I definitely was. So I grew up making things and not being very good at it. And my parents also never pushed it on me. They kind of left it to me to decide, if I wanted to pursue maybe some courses and that type of thing. And I really didn't, but I always loved it. But then in high school, I took a photography course and fell in love with that. And then, when I was 19, I moved out west. I moved to Montana and went to photography school. And I actually became a photographer as my job, and did that for 10 years. So that was my primary job, was photography. And then I burnt out of that, I guess you could say. I started getting a lot of anxiety about my work. So I was a perfectionist. And then as a photographer, and I was doing a lot of events and weddings and things like that.
Oh,
and
weddings are so high stress.
a lot of pressure.
There's a lot of pressure.
So there's a lot of external pressure, but then like I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I still do, but I put more back then. So it got to this point where it's like, I just don't think I can keep doing this. Like, I don't love it anymore. It's just too hard. And then I was kind of designing my own like promotional material and things like that, and realized like maybe this is more maybe this would be a better like day to day, is trying to find something where I can, you're still collaborative, but it's not like performative. Like you're not having to nail it right then and there.
Right.
You can make mistakes and then just delete things, try different things. So I decided I wanted to try it, and that's what I've been doing for the last 11 years, 12 years, something like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That was a long answer, sorry.
No, I think it's really interesting that you came to graphic design by way of photography, because that's one thing I've noticed about your work, is that you have an eye for light. Like when you do, there was a book of fairy tales with a little kid holding a lantern in the woods.
Oh, Tales of Wonder. Yep.
Tales of Wonder. That was it. I remember that just catching my eye, and just like that design has just such an eye for light.
Yeah.
I didn't even know who you were at the time, but I remember that cover catching my eye and thinking, oh, that's amazing. Like I could just
cool.
look
Good.
at that for a long time.
I love that, because that was a difficult one for me. I'm not an illustrator. Like I don't, when I think of illustrators, I think of like John Hendricks, or like that start their design with a pencil. And I technically do that, but I would never, ever show anybody those sketches. Like they're so rudimentary. So yeah, for that one in particular, that was like a stretch for me, because I drew a chunk of that cover.
Oh, interesting.
I work a lot in mixed media. Like that's my favorite. So like taking some graphic elements, maybe some photographic elements, maybe some hand-drawn stuff, maybe some vintage art from 80 years ago, and trying to incorporate it all.
Yeah.
But like I would definitely say I'm a graphic designer, not an illustrator.
Yeah.
Which sometimes I like, and sometimes, man, I wish I could draw. Like it would make life so much easier.
Yeah, I get that. So shifting a little bit, you collaborate with David Kern a lot.
Yeah.
On like Cersei things and the Withywindle podcast. And tell me the story behind your friendship with David. How'd you get tangled up with him?
Friendship, huh? Well, yeah, we tolerate each other. I guess sometimes we're friends. Yeah, so David and his family, so his father started the company that I currently work for, which is the Cersei Institute. We went to college together 18 years ago in the Midwest, and then he moved back home to North Carolina, which is where we both live now. And then and then I started my photography business, did all that stuff in the Midwest. And for a number of years, he was like, come move to North Carolina, come move to North Carolina. And I said, no, no, no. And then one day I said yes, and
Mm.
moved here, started working with David collaboratively.
Mhm.
And that's where I got my graphic design start, because I was working for Cersei as the creative director,
Mm.
which I still do, but which involves, designing promotional material, designing book covers, designing conferences and webinars, and everything visual that comes out of the company. I
Mm.
usually has had my hand in some way. And he was more into like the content generation
Mhm.
and big ideas. And yeah, so we worked together there for about 8 years.
Mhm.
And then he quit to start the bookstore.
Mhm.
So Goldberry Books is about a mile from my house and his house. And that's what he's doing now. And then I work with him there as well, doing very similar things, promoting the bookstore, designing different events for him. And then, yeah, we do that. We do podcasts together as well.
So what is it like living within a mile of a bookstore? That sounds amazing.
A good bookstore too.
A good
Yeah.
bookstore. It's a
Yeah.
great bookstore.
It's awesome. It's part of our routine.
Love that.
It's just like a great third space, it's like a space to go to meet
Mm.
friends.
Yep.
It's got a coffee shop right next door to it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm ever needing something for whatever, it's so simple to run out and grab it. And then my kids love going there as well. And they have a
Mm-hmm.
basement, which is spooky, and they go down there and play hide and seek, and it's wonderful.
That's amazing.
And now they're getting a little bit older. David also tasks them with cleaning up the basement sometimes. And
That's really fun. Yeah,
yeah.
our family were friends with a family that owned a florist shop. And so anytime we'd
Mm.
pop in and visit them, they would hand us a broom and we were sweeping up things in the back.
Yeah.
And, eventually we'd be filling water picks or, there was always a
Yeah.
task for us to do while the adults were visiting. And honestly, it felt good to us. Like, oh, wow, we have a
Yeah.
job. And, it was something that needed done. So.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't know what David's thinking, but maybe we're training up our, next workforce
I
for the
mean,
store. I'm
it's a
assuming.
nice thought.
Yeah. So did you get paid in flowers when you worked there?
I mean, like the bookstore or a flower shop, like for that to be part of your childhood, it's a beautiful thing. I
Yeah, I
mean,
think so too.
I think it's a rare and very beautiful thing to get to enjoy those moments of beauty and these spaces of friendship and all of that wrapped up into one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, Rachel, you've been to the shop, right?
I have. Yeah.
Okay, I thought
Yeah,
so.
multiple times. It's a bit of a trek for us. I think it takes us about an hour to get there.
Oh yeah,
So we don't get
that's
up there very often. But man, if we were a mile away, I would spend so much money.
yeah. Yeah, we walk there often in the months that aren't 1,000 degrees in North
Uh-huh.
Carolina.
Yep. Yep. I love it. All right. What makes a good book design? So when you're looking at other books that other people have designed, like what catches your eye in a good cover? Or what do you look for? What do you aim for when you're working on something?
It's a great question. So to me, it's less about a particular style, right? Like there are books in all, I feel like there's books in all sorts of styles
Hmm.
that I gravitate toward, but the ones that I think are the best, obviously, like you're looking at something visual, so you're looking at the composition, the colors.
Mhm.
I would say balance is
Hmm.
very important. And if they're not balanced, is there a reason? Is it
Hmm.
intentional? Is it
Hmm.
communicating something about the contents?
Hmm.
Does the style fit the genre?
Hmm.
Like a nonfiction book about books or about trees shouldn't look like a different genre, like obviously not like a horror genre, but not even like a novel.
Right.
So it should be clear. But yeah, I mean, I think I think like balance and composition and typography are the kind of the main things I'm looking at.
Hmm.
And then obviously like you're in if it's in a store or online, you're competing, you're showing people, you're putting your product out in front of people who have seen thousands of books or
Hmm.
are currently seeing that many as they scroll. So hopefully it's also interesting enough
Mm-hmm.
to kind of, do that kind of grabbing their attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that can be a super simple cover too. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not always about complexity. Sometimes it's about paring back.
Mm-hmm.
And these are like constantly things like I can articulate this very easily, and then
Mm-hmm.
I go try to make something and it all falls apart. So like
Yeah.
so like sometimes it's definitely sometimes I'm playing and hopefully even when I'm working I'm playing with the colors and all this stuff, but like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it definitely feels like work, especially if you've tried 20 things and you just don't feel like you're hitting on
Yeah.
anything correct. So
Yes.
yeah. But
Oh,
after you do, it's a great feeling.
yes. You
And
finally land on
yeah.
something that.
So it's an exercise in persistence, at least for me. I
Mm-hmm.
know other people are probably, well, I would just say they're probably better at the whole process than I am, but that might not be true. They might, everybody might go through the exact same phases of, that creative process of failure and doubt and
Mm-hmm.
success. But yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it comes together and sometimes it feels like you're banging your head against the wall and, six,
Yeah.
7, 8 drafts in, you finally start to land on something that's working and
Yeah.
you can
I'm
tweak
sure
it.
that's the exact same thing for the author of that book. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
all in we're
Yeah.
all in the same process.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That creative process.
Mhm.
It's lovely when it works well and it just comes together, but that's not very often.
It's the rarer thing, yes.
It is. It is. Well, I appreciate your work on the projects, the textures and the eye for design. And I've enjoyed your work from afar for a long time. And now we've gotten to collaborate on a couple book titles, Above Not Up, and
Hmm.
then The Mother of All Words that's coming soon. And I just want to say that has been a really fun process because I have ideas. Like we start with kind of a general idea of where we want to go and what we want it to look like. But I know that this is not within my capacity as a designer.
Hmm.
I know my limits. And so it's so much fun to be able to communicate that and then just to see someone like you who has that gifting and just can just run with it. And your work is just phenomenal. So thank you for collaborating with us on these titles.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
people love those books. The covers, we've heard a number of people comment on just how much it stands out and how much they love it. So thank you for your work on this.
Of course, yeah, it's been a really good process and I am very happy with those ones. So yeah,
Oh,
that's been great.
good. Good. Well, here's to future collaboration.
Nice.
All right. So, what inspired you and David to start the Withywindle podcast? And has anything about its success surprised you?
Yeah. So we started it in 2021, but we had been talking about, so David has two other podcasts,
Hmm.
sometimes three. The biggest one is Close Reads, and that is
Hmm.
like a book club podcast. And so he was talking about doing one for kids. Yeah, like I say, for probably about a year. And I'm helping him think through maybe what this could look like and things like that. And then one day he's like, I think you should do it with me. And I was like, oh, no, I don't think so. No, no, thank you. And that goes back to just like, I have a lot of anxiety. I have a lot of, I guess, self-doubt. Like I just automatically assume this would be better if it was somebody different, right? Like there's somebody
Right.
better for you. And he was pretty insistent. And
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad he insisted because
yeah,
you two have such a great rapport. It's so much fun to listen to.
good. Yeah, I'm glad too. It's definitely a joy to do. It's a ton of work. It's so much work. But
Oh,
it's
I
like
don't doubt it.
that's why we only do it seasonally. So we do
Yes.
like 10 episodes in the spring and then 10 episodes in the fall. But just we both have young kids and
Hmm.
you know, we remember how important books were at that age. And we were looking around at like that podcast space and seeing that there wasn't much. There's some good things out there, but we thought we
Hmm.
could do something pretty unique.
Yeah.
So it started off, we were like the first few seasons, it was like a book club. We would be reading through
Hmm.
Charlotte's Web or something like that. But then we'd also have a lot of riddles and Oh, and then obviously every episode we bring an author, a kid's book author or illustrator
Yeah.
on. But what's surprising, I think we knew that the response, if we were any good, the response, we'd have a decent response.
Mm,
Like at least our friends would like it.
sure.
Or maybe a little bit more extended past that. But like it's gone pretty far. It's pretty cool. Like the amount of correspondence and we have with, the kids emailing us and like sending us packages and driving to visit the store, sending us drawings. All of that stuff has been like unexpected. Like that was awesome.
Do you have like a pantry of snacks that are just waiting for you?
No, because we get them, and between us, David and I, our families, we have 7 kids. So
Oh
no,
yeah.
they go real
They're gonna
fast.
go quick.
Yeah. So snacking is like a big part of our podcast, which is great and unfortunate because I am not getting younger. And we record these things at like 11 o'clock at night, and
Oh,
I'm eating like why don't we test or taste test like 8 different kinds of Klondike ice cream bars? It's not great.
late at night. No.
It doesn't make for a great next day. So literally between seasons, I am like on a diet. That's where we are. That's where we are right now. Like,
So your life patterns are conformed to the podcast seasons.
yes. That's not a joke. Like I'm dieting currently
Oh
because
wow.
I know the season's coming up.
Yep.
It's funny.
Gearing up. That's great. What are some of your favorite moments or interviews from the podcast over the past few years?
Yeah. Definitely there's stuff that pops out.
Mm-hmm.
So having John Erickson on the podcast, who's the author of the Hank the Cowdog
Mm-hmm.
series, that is one of my that's one of my favorite memories of the show because as we're recording and talking, to the guests and interviewing them, David and I have a chat box up on the screen just to each other so we can
Right.
say, hey, how about this question next, anything behind the scenes that needs to take place on the fly.
Sure.
And then but talking with him, he's older.
Uh-huh.
He's just this older like rural Texan, and our show is silly, and you're trying to get a vibe like, is this going okay? And we couldn't figure it out the whole time. We're talking back and forth trying to be like, are we doing okay? And then at one point we do a quiz for the author, and so like usually I'm coming up with the questions beforehand.
Mm-hmm. Excellent
And
questions,
thank
by
you.
the way.
And it takes a long time.
I'm
and
sure
and
it does.
we're like, okay, John, we're going to move into this quiz. Are you ready for this? And he's like, I don't want to do this, basically, is what he said. He didn't say, he wasn't being mean. He's just like, I don't think so. And so we're like, oh no, oh no. And so David's so good at like hosting a show. So he pivots, and basically we're doing the quiz to each other
Oh, nice.
at this point. And like, I love that interview, and people talk to me about that interview, how much they like it and like him, and he's super likable. It was just a very funny situation, like behind
Yeah.
the scenes, because he put us on our heels to be like,
Yeah.
oh no,
Yeah.
what do we do?
Oh, that's fun.
But then also like getting to talk to people I've looked up to for years.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a huge fan of the Green Glass House series, and so
Yeah.
talking to Kate Milford, that was like a real treat. And then of course like there's the Kate DiCamillos and Gary Schmitz and like these people. I'm like, whoa, I can't believe like they agreed to do our show.
Yeah. I love
And
it.
then we're asking them like ridiculous questions about Cheetos and like making that ridiculous quiz, and just praying that they aren't going to leave the show, and immediately like text their agent and be like, never put me on that show again.
Well, from a listener standpoint, it sounds like the people you interview are enjoying themselves.
They are
not your run-of-the-mill dry list of, very serious questions, because it's for children. And so it gives us permission to play and have fun and, let loose a bit.
Like I mean, it feels like everybody has a great time on it. And the people who maybe are reticent or they're they have to like feel it out too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we can definitely tell when somebody is like, as the show's going along, they're getting more and more comfortable and
Mm-hmm.
getting into it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Oh, that's fun.
that's really cool. And then the show has developed different little segments and inside jokes that the audience is
Mm-hmm.
a part of, and like as that naturally develops over the years, like we have the bookstore troll character, and the
Yep.
printer was pretty early on that became a character, and then
Yep.
I did a fake ad once, and now that's a thing. Like we have fake sponsors, and we have
Yes.
the quizzes, and like these just became reoccurring bits. A lot of that's my favorite stuff, just like how organically it
Yeah.
developed. Like none of that was really planned, and like
Yeah. A lot of that is our favorite stuff too. So
yeah, cool.
I'm glad you lean into the fun and just run with it because it's so delightful.
Yeah, like my absolute favorite thing whenever it happens is cracking David.
Hmm.
Like he's laughing at me or laughing with me, like a bunch of different stuff, but when I really see his eyes light up during one of those fake sponsor things or whatever, because he doesn't know what's coming, that's the best. That's the best.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a Wet Jim's water park, right?
Oh yeah, Wet Gym. Yeah, we get a lot of illustrations of Wet
I love
Gym
it.
that the
Oh, that's
kids
so
do.
fun.
Like,
Have you shared them on social media anywhere?
I think we put up a couple drawings, a couple of times on our
Hmm.
Substack, but yeah, we should do more. It's just going through them all and
Sure.
organizing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure that's a lot. Your piles and piles of fan letters. Well, I wanted to ask you a series of popcorn questions.
Okay.
My family helped me put together a bit of a list. So,
Are they
Evelyn,
about popcorn?
they're not about popcorn,
Oh, okay.
but try to keep your answers short, and so we can get through quite a few of them and not make our podcast drag on.
Okay. All right.
All
Got
right.
it.
So, Evelyn, age 8, wants to know
Mm.
what is your favorite animal?
My favorite animal, right now, I would say it's the maned wolf.
The maned wolf. Like
Yeah.
he had the mane.
I'm not, you told me not to go into any more
Okay.
details. So
All
yeah,
right.
we'll
Gabe.
see. Yeah, look it up.
All right. We'll look it up. Gabe, age 11, says, did you play video games when you were a kid? And if so, which is your favorite?
I played a lot of video games as a kid and an adult. Should I say that part? I don't know.
No, that's fine.
Right now I'm playing with my son, or just recently we were playing like the latest Zelda
Oh,
game,
fun.
Tears of the Kingdom, which is a beautiful game.
Hmm.
But similar, when I was a kid, I was playing a lot of Zelda.
Yep.
So like those adventure games with a good story,
Yes.
with
Yep.
good mechanics and stuff like that. I grew up on that like regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo,
Yes. Yes. Regular
where
Nintendo. Old school. Love it. All right. Mick, age 47, wants to know,
ah,
would you rather fight 100 duck-sized orcs or one orc-sized duck?
this is tricky. 100 duck-sized orcs.
Or one orc-sized duck?
Hmm. It's got to be the 100. I think you got to roll the dice
Mhm.
and just rely on your size. I think. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. I think they'd
All
still
right.
take me down,
I
but
mean,
if not, it'd be a pretty cool story.
it would. Okay. The most important question, Cheetos or Doritos?
Hmm. All right. So,
I don't think you've ever thought about this.
okay, but all right. So the main mistake that I hear people make with answering this question is that they treat it as a matter of taste only,
Oh,
when really they need to factor in all of the elements that make, well, I mean, what is a Dorito? What makes a Dorito and a
yes.
Cheeto, right?
Yep.
So you got to consider like what's the primary ingredient for each, which
Hmm.
actually for both is
It's
cornmeal.
corn.
So you don't need to spend much time there. But if you move on to shape, now we're getting interesting.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we got, one is the triangle, of course, and one is a curved cylinder, right? I mean, which one is quote unquote better? You would think the triangle would be, because I mean, it's a fundamental shape. It's a strong shape, but you also have to factor in that the Cheeto Puff is so distinctive in its shape that you can easily start a conversation using the terminology Cheeto shaped,
Right.
and people would know what you're referring to. So that's powerful.
Yeah.
So already we're at a little bit of a conundrum. So in my mind, like, is it an impossible question? Like, how many angels can you fit onto the head of a pin, or who let the dogs out? I don't know. I think we have to reject that it's impossible because, as Sartre says, it's only in our decisions that we ourselves are important. So we can't languish in this despair of shapes.
Right. How long will you waver between two opinions?
There you go. There's got to be an elegant solution to the problem if we dig deeper into it. So we might need to get a little metaphysical with it.
I think so.
No, I'm just kidding. It's Doritos. Shoot Cheetos into the sun. They're not as good. No. And it's Cool Ranch Doritos.
Oh, Cool Ranch. Those, yes, from my childhood, 100% Cool Ranch.
I like Cheetos. They're messier. It's like everybody that comes onto our podcast says like they're messier, and that's true.
It is
and
true.
that is an issue. That's an issue. But Cool Ranch Doritos are like one of the best things.
They
ever.
are. They really are. All right. What's the most disappointing snack of all time, and why is it rice cakes?
Oh, I've never thought about this. I like this question. Is it rice cakes? Yeah.
Is there a more disappointing snack than rice cakes?
I think that nails it. Like plain.
Plain, yeah.
Or maybe it's one of the rice cakes that has a cool sounding flavor, like salted caramel.
Right.
And then you eat it and you're like, bleh. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Salted caramel cardboard.
That's the answer. It's a rice cake that purports to be delicious.
Yes.
And is
which makes it even more disappointing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the most suspicious snack you've ever encountered?
Suspicious. Ooh, that's a great question. I think, I'm trying to think of like the ones we've had on the show that I've just been like, no. It's got to be like we had pickle cotton candy.
Oh, no.
That I had to try, and that was so terrible. And I was very suspicious that it would be. So yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
Why?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. If Gollum opened a snack stand, what would he sell, and would you eat it?
Would I eat it? Well, first I'd be thrilled to just be in the presence of such a esteemed literary character. It would be fish-based for sure. Yeah, of course, I would eat it. I would eat the freeze-dried fish tart or whatever he's made just to say I did it.
Yep.
But you know it would be terrible, and you know somehow he's robbing you as you're standing there eating it. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But again, yes.
Do you have a favorite word?
Yeah. So this is really tricky because I want to. There's so many good ones. All right, I'm gonna look. I have a list.
You have a list of favorite words? I love that you have a list.
If I can pull it up, but I don't know if I can find it.
We can wait. Maybe Sam can insert some elevator music here.
All right. I did not find my list, but I can tell you.
Okay.
Bioluminescence is one of the best words.
That's
I don't know. It evokes what it is somehow. I don't really know why. And same with effervescence or effervescent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are wonderful.
Those are great words. What has been your favorite book to read aloud over and over to your children?
Yeah.
You have memorized.
When my when my youngest was younger, we read Go Dog Go over and over and over. And so that is definitely up there. And I remember reading that as a child as well. You know, do you like my hat? I do not. Like that one, definitely. As they've gotten older, like I've read the Green Glass House series to my oldest quite a bit. I've read Harry Potter to all of them now, not all the way through to all of them. And then I read Lord of the Rings to my oldest, and that was wonderful. But that is a tricky read aloud. Like that's a
I was
hard
gonna
one.
say that sounds like a commitment.
Especially like I think he was, you know, maybe 9 or 10, and you've read 3 pages of like description.
Yeah.
And so like every once in a while I'd have to like check in. Be like, you still with me? Are you okay?
Are
I
you
know.
asleep?
I'm sorry. We're getting there. The plot's coming back soon. There'll be some dialogue again.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then Jonathan Auxier's books, so like Sweep and Peter Nimble, those ones are high up as well.
All right. Our last popcorn question. If you could only communicate through one sound effect for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Sound effect. Like, am I making it with my mouth, or does it just like
I don't know.
when I want it to happen, it happens?
When you need to communicate something, this is the sound effect that comes out.
I mean, it would have to be something fun, or I think you just get annoying to people. So not like a balloon popping. That would just be terrifying. Maybe some like onomatopoeia. Let's do that.
Oh,
so like
nice.
like zoinks or something.
Zoinks.
So that could mean I'm here. That could mean
It could.
Pay attention, like warning. Yes and no is where it would get trickier.
Yeah.
But I mean that's the same for all of them. So yeah.
It's a bit like I am Groot.
Yeah.
Zoinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I guess
That's
you just have to change your inflection. And people would hopefully pick up on that if they're still around after a while. They all haven't abandoned you.
That's right.
For quieter, better pastures.
I love it. Well, Graeme, thank you so much for joining us on the Banderpod today.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a delight. Listeners, today is the last day to get in on our Kickstarter for our new fully illustrated children's poetry anthology, I've Got a Bad Case of Poetry. The Kickstarter ends at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight. So make sure you get in and help us bring this book to the world. Thank you for listening. May you all find bookish treasures in your wanderings off the beaten path. Thanks for listening in to our conversation today on the Banderpod. We hope you'll check out our full catalog at bandersnatchbooks.com. The Banderpod is produced by Rachel S. Donahue, A.B. Donahue, and Carolyn Claire Givens. Audio engineering by Artwork by Evelyn Warnamundy. Many thanks to our friend Chris Slayton of Son of Laughter for our theme song, Cricket in a Jar. Find links and more in the show notes.